Do you remember Hayley Mills in the early 1960s? She wasn't just a movie star. She was childhood itself, innocent, joyful, and impossibly bright. Millions of Americans grew up believing Hayley Mills represented everything pure about youth. But behind that smile was a life quietly falling apart. At the height of her fame, Hayley came dangerously close to walking away from acting forever. Not because she failed, but because one single scene crossed a line she was never prepared to face. Even more disturbing, years later she would admit something almost unthinkable. The people who shaped her life the most were also the ones who led her off course. How could a Disney princess carry so many unspoken wounds? This is not a story about fame. It's a story about control, loss, and the silent cost of growing up too fast. Revealed through rare moments, buried memories, and truths, Hayley Mills spent decades trying to understand herself. And by the end, you'll see why her name is remembered with admiration and deep regret. Hayley Mills was born on April 18, 1946, into a world already glowing with spotlights. Art wasn't something she discovered. It surrounded her from birth. Her father was Sir John Mills, one of Britain's most respected actors. Her mother, Mary Bell, was also an actress. From the outside, it looked like destiny, a perfect beginning. But destiny can also be a cage. Hayley was raised in a household where talent mattered more than choice. Her parents loved her deeply, but their love came with control. They didn't simply guide her path, they decided it. From an early age, Hayley had very little freedom to ask who she wanted to be. Acting wasn't a dream she chased, it was a direction she was pushed toward. In 1959, when Hayley was just 12 years old, director J. Lee Thompson was searching for a young boy to star in his upcoming film, Tiger Bay. But when Hayley auditioned, her natural charm and quiet intensity changed everything. She was cast instead, acting alongside her own father. The film was a major success almost overnight. Hayley Mills became one of cinema's most promising young faces. But while the industry celebrated her future, Hayley herself felt nothing close to ambition. To her, acting was still just play, like something temporary, something light. Her parents didn't see it that way. They saw Tiger Bay as a launch pad, a beginning that had to be exploited, expanded, and pushed further, no matter the cost. And without fully realizing it, Hayley's childhood began slipping away one decision at a time. Hayley's performance in Tiger Bay didn't just impress audiences. It caught the attention of powerful eyes inside Hollywood. One of them belonged to Bill Anderson, a producer at Walt Disney. He saw in Hayley something Disney desperately needed, a child star who felt genuine, gentle, and emotionally real. In 1960, Hayley was cast in Pollyanna, playing an optimistic orphan whose innocence softened everyone around her. The role didn't just succeed, it conquered hearts. Hayley Mills became Disney's ideal child. The performance earned her the Juvenile Academy Award, a historic honor and a heavy label to carry. Success followed instantly. In 1961, Disney placed even more weight on her young shoulders by casting her in a dual role in The Parent Trap. This time, Hayley wasn't just acting. She sang, danced, and performed opposite herself, flawlessly. The song, "Let's Get Together," climbed into the US top 10. Audiences adored her. Parents approved of her. From the outside, Hayley Mills looked unstoppable. That same year, she returned to Britain and stunned critics with her performance in Whistle Down the Wind. She was voted the biggest star in Britain, an astonishing achievement for someone still in her teens. But behind the applause, something was quietly breaking. The more her career soared, the tighter her world became. Her parents monitored every choice. Disney protected her image with rigid rules, and Hayley felt trapped inside a version of herself she no longer recognized. Fame had made her famous everywhere, except in her own life. By the early 1960s, Hayley Mills was no longer just a child star, she was a brand, carefully protected, tightly controlled, and frozen in time. But inside she was changing. In 1962, a moment arrived that could have reshaped her entire future. Hayley was offered the lead role in Lolita, a bold, controversial project that would have forced her to confront adulthood on screen. For Hayley, it wasn't about scandal, it was about growth, about finally being seen as something more than Disney's perfect little girl. Her father, Sir John Mills, immediately refused. Something that could permanently damage her image. And Hayley obeyed. Outwardly, she accepted his decision with quiet respect. But inside, regret settled in, deep and lasting. It wasn't just a role she lost. It was a chance to step out of the cage, like many teenagers who grow up under constant control. At 19, she left her tightly managed home and moved to New York, a city that promised freedom, anonymity, and escape. For the first time in her life, no one was watching her every move. But freedom, when you've never learned how to handle it, can be just as dangerous as control. And within days of arriving in the city, Hayley made a decision that would haunt her far longer than she ever expected. New York felt like another planet for Hayley. It was loud, fast, and intoxicating. Everything her old life had never allowed her to touch. No studio rules, no parents watching, no expectations to be good. Just 1 week after arriving, she decided it was time to change her life completely. It wasn't planned, it wasn't romantic. It was impulsive, emotional, and deeply rooted in exhaustion. Hayley was tired of being controlled, tired of being Disney's image, tired of living a life where every decision had already been made for her. When her sister introduced her to an old Nip friend named Joe, the original plan was harmless. He would simply show her around the city. But Hayley wasn't interested in sightseeing. What she wanted was release. She prepared her hotel room carefully. Silk nightgown, dim lights, quiet music in her mind. This night wasn't about desire. It was about reclaiming something she believed had been taken from her. Control over her own body, her own choices. But when morning came, the freedom she expected never arrived. Instead, she felt guilt, shame, an overwhelming sense of loneliness. The night she believed would liberate her only made her feel more lost than ever. For the first time, she wished she had never left home. Wished she had never walked away from the only structure she had ever known. And slowly, painfully, Hayley began to realize that escaping control didn't mean escaping pain. It only changed its shape. When Hayley Mills returned from New York, something inside her had changed. The spotlight no longer felt warm. It felt exhausting in 1965. She appeared in That Darn Cat, her final film with Disney. On the surface, it looked like just another success. But for Hayley, it felt like an ending. After 6 years as one of Disney's most beloved young stars, the dream was over. The contract that had once protected her had also imprisoned her. For years, she had been locked into wholesome roles that left no room to grow, no space to explore who she truly was. Later in life, Hayley would admit that this confinement didn't just cost her opportunities. It damaged her sense of self-worth. She had missed out on roles that could have helped her mature as an actress more painfully. She had missed out on understanding herself. Determined to escape Disney's shadow, Hayley accepted more daring projects. In 1966, The Trouble with Angels marked an important step forward, proof that she was trying to redefine her image. But the real turning point came with a film that would leave scars far deeper than anyone realized at the time. The Family Way promised artistic freedom, it promised adulthood, and it demanded everything Disney never had. The script required Hayley to shed her childhood image completely, including a deeply sensitive, intimate scene. At first she agreed. She wanted to prove she was no longer a child star. But after days of filming, the reality became unbearable. 3 long, emotionally brutal days on set left her shaken. What she thought would be empowering became one of the most horrifying experiences of her career. The scenes stripped away not just her image, but her confidence. The aftermath was devastating. Hayley fell into depression. She withdrew from the spotlight, from the industry that had once defined her entire existence. The girl who had once carried Disney's magic was gone. In her place was a woman trying to survive the cost of growing up in public. After retreating from the spotlight, Hayley Mills was emotionally vulnerable, searching for stability, understanding, and a sense of safety she had never truly known. It was during this fragile period that she became involved with Roy Bolting, the directorship of Family Way. Their relationship immediately wrote her than Hayley. He was established, authoritative, and confident, with everything she was not. To Hayley, the relationship felt grounding. To the outside world, it felt alarming. Her parents strongly disapproved, especially her father, who feared the imbalance of power and the consequences it might bring. But Hayley, exhausted from years of being told what she couldn't do, she even insisted that Roy marry her in 1971. After a long period of hesitation, he agreed. but on his own terms. At first, marriage seemed like the stability Hayley had been craving, but it didn't take long for reality to reveal itself. In her memoir, Hayley later admitted that life with Roy was not loving or freeing. It was restrictive, isolating, and deeply controlling. Roy discouraged her from making new friends. He wouldn't allow her to accept acting roles unless he was the director. Her career, once again, was no longer hers. The painful truth slowly became clear. She had escaped one system of control only to fall into another. Although they had a son together, Crispian Mills, who would later become the lead singer of the band Kula Shaker, motherhood could not compensate for the growing sense of suffocation Hayley felt. By the mid-1970s, she could no longer ignore the pattern repeating itself in her life. In 1977, after nearly 6 years of marriage, Hayley Mills made the difficult decision to divorce Roy Bolting. It was painful, it was frightening, but for the first time, it was entirely her choice. And yet, her search for peace was far from over. The divorce gave Hayley Mills something she had rarely known: silence. No studio contracts, no controlling husband, no parents dictating her future. But freedom once again came with uncertainty. Before her divorce was even finalized, Hayley entered a new relationship in 1978 with actor Lee Lawson. Together, they had a son, Jason Lawson. For a brief moment, it seemed like she might finally have found balance. Love without dominance, companionship without control. But the pattern she had spent her entire life trapped in was hard to escape. The relationship didn't last. By the early 1980s, Hayley made another difficult decision: to walk away. This time, she chose solitude over compromise, self-preservation over attachment. She stopped searching for love as an escape. Instead, she focused on rebuilding herself piece by piece. Without anyone else defining her worth professionally, she returned to acting in quieter ways. In 1981, she appeared in the British television drama, The Flame Trees of Fika. The role marked her re-entry into the industry. Lee, not as a star chasing fame, but as a woman choosing work on her own terms. The world noticed her return, but it was clear something had changed. The bright, unstoppable momentum of her youth was gone. And perhaps for the first time, she was at peace with that. Hayley no longer wanted to shine the way she once had. She wanted to breathe. And just when she had accepted the idea that love might never return, life surprised her once more. In 1997, when Hayley Mills met Ferdice Basaliala, love did not arrive with fireworks. Ferdice was an Indian-American actor 20 years younger than her. There was no instant romance. No dramatic connection at first. There was hesitation that came before. Ferdice didn't try to shape Hayley into anything else. He didn't control her. He didn't limit her world. Instead, he stayed patient, consistent over time. That quiet persistence softened the walls Hayley had spent decades building, and slowly love returned. Not as rescue, but as partnership. Then in April 2008, shortly after her 62nd birthday, Hayley's life took another devastating turn. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. The news came without warning, and true to her nature, she chose to fight the battle privately. Away from headlines, away from sympathy, the months that followed were filled with fear and isolation. Moments where she felt dangerously close to death. Moments where she questioned whether her body had finally given up after a lifetime of emotional strain. Hayley refused chemotherapy and radiation. To her, those treatments felt more frightening than the illness itself. Instead, she chose surgery, a decision she made largely alone with little guidance and no certainty of success. But it was also the most empowered decision she had ever made against the odds. It worked. By 2012, Hayley publicly revealed that she was cancer-free. Her recovery wasn't just physical, but it was spiritual. For the first time, she felt ownership over her life, her body, and her future. But her story wasn't finished yet. Surviving cancer changed Hayley Mills in ways fame never could. With her health restored, she returned to work. Not to reclaim stardom, but to remain connected to the craft that had shaped her life. In 2023, she appeared as Lady Emma Hume in Season 5 of Unforgotten, a quiet reminder of a presence that once defined an era. By then, Hayley understood something she had spent decades learning. Not every star is meant to shine forever in her later years. She chose simplicity over spectacle. She embraced aging without cosmetic surgery, openly accepting the appearance she once felt insecure about, especially her nose, which she had considered changing in her youth. Writing became a new passion. Words replaced cameras. Reflection replaced performance. Today, Hayley Mills lives a peaceful life in London with her younger partner, surrounded by family and the freedom she fought so hard to claim, though she has never officially retired from acting. She no longer chases the spotlight with an estimated net worth of around $5 million. She remains financially secure. Hayley Mills will always be remembered as Disney's golden girl, but her true legacy isn't the films, the awards, or the applause. It's survival. A woman who grew up inside a fantasy and spent a lifetime learning how to live in reality. And perhaps that's why even now her story lingers in our minds, but as a quiet warning and a hard-earned truth.